Bailey isn't like other manufacturers that feel the need to refresh their model ranges every season. It introduces a range and it'll stay like that, fundamentally unchanged, for 2, perhaps 3 whole seasons. But this year, something's happened to make them change that policy. The centre washroom. Such is its popularity that Bailey has seen fit to introduce not 1, but 2 new caravans featuring this layout. We'll come on to the twin-axle version shortly, but first of all, we'll start off with this. It's the new Bailey Unicorn Cabrera. You can spot a Cabrera by its square front window, but apart from that, it's much like any other Unicorn. We've got a full kit list, including a gas barbecue point, an Alco ATC, an external locker hatch, and moving further down, we've got an external 230 volt power point. One thing that's a little bit of a shame is the fact that there's no external hatch at the back here. We know there's an island bed inside, so it would have been nice to be able to get to it, particularly because this is an Alutech van, which means it's got a structural rear panel where they could have had a hatch. Now that would have been something different. Once you step aboard, you can see the reason for that square window. It means there's space for the obligatory Unicorn magazine rack, and very nice it is too, I'm sure. Now often with a centre washroom, you get a really squeezed lounge space, but that's really not the case here. It's plenty roomy enough for 4 to sit in good comfort. Maybe not more than 4, but then this is only a 4-berth van, so should be plenty. Of course we have that fantastic front window, which is a Unicorn signature, and I do love it. I know I always go on about it when I'm in a Unicorn, but there's a very good reason. It makes for a lovely space. Storage is not massive. We've got 4 fairly small overhead lockers, but of course plenty of space underneath the bed boxes. And the near side one has a plastic liner for all your wet boots and coats, and the little shoe cupboard at the end there, which I always think is a very nice detail indeed. And of course, if you have guests, well, up front here is where they'll stay. These sofas are most definitely not long enough to be single beds unless your guests are extremely short, but you just pull out the slats from beneath the front chest there, slide down the sofas, and it makes for a relatively narrow but pretty good sized double. The kitchen is pretty standard Unicorn fare, apart from the fact that we've got a bulkhead here instead of an open plan space leading through the bedroom and into the end washroom, as you traditionally find in a Bailey Unicorn. We've got the nice island unit that sticks out slightly into the living space to give a good visual separation between lounge and kitchen, and of course it gives you a big cupboard underneath, despite the fact that the gas locker's in there, as in all Bailey products, in order to improve the weight distribution. Up front there's a lift up flap to give you more worktop space should you need it, and of course there's a good sized stainless steel circular sink. Underneath, as well as that end cupboard, we've got a cutlery drawer and another good sized cupboard. And then here we have the standard Unicorn dual fuel hob and separate oven and grill. Well, I say it's standard, but actually if you look closely you'll see it's been set back a couple of inches. Why, you ask? Well, it means that if someone's coming out the bathroom, you've got room to just get out their way without singeing yourself against your pans. It's a really thoughtful bit of design. Slightly less thoughtful is the fact that the microwave is set up high directly over the hob. I never really like to see that. Over on the offside, you'll find a tower refrigerator, which is a good size and has a built-in freezer compartment. And then from here, well, where do we go? Well, into the washroom, which is something completely new on a Unicorn. Now, these centre washrooms on single axle models really do vary hugely in size, but Bailey has taken the decision to sacrifice a little bit of bed length to get a really good washroom space. As long as you're not too tall, that sounds like really sensible thinking, because this really does feel amazingly spacious for a single axle van with this layout. Over here on the offside, we've got a clear window. I'd really rather have seen a smoked window there, but it brings in plenty of light along with this good sized overhead roof light. There's a cabinet on the wall, and beneath it, I love this detail, a proper dirty clothes basket. Brilliant. In the middle, we've got a vanity unit, which has got a proper sized sink and a really large cupboard underneath. And then here on the near side, well, we've got a Beam Me Up Scotty shower with shelves for all your lotions and potions and an Eco Camel Orbit showerhead. There are 2 ways into the rear master bedroom from the bathroom. There's here, and over on the other side of the van, there's this one. It's great because it means that both of you can get into the bathroom at night without disturbing your bedmate. Now, remember I mentioned that bed earlier? Well, it measures 5 feet 10 inches long. Not ideal for me, but Bailey reckons that it'll be plenty big enough for the majority of its buyers, and it thinks it's worth making that sacrifice for that fantastic centre washroom. Fair enough, who am I to argue? Underneath, of course, you get a massive amount of storage space, and that's also where you'll find the spare wheel. And at the end here, well, we've got a mounting point and sockets for your TV, which is great, means you can recline on the bed and watch telly to your heart's content. There's plenty of storage at the back here. There's a wardrobe on either side, with the offside one also containing the expansion tank for the Aldi wet central heating. And of course you get shelves, reading lights, and a little storage cupboard, plus an overhead locker each. I also like the detailing at the back here. We've got proper curtains with shelves above. It gives a really domestic feel. It's a very attractive space to be. So that's the Bailey Unicorn Cabrera. And what if you like the idea of that, but you want a little bit more room? Well, there's the Bailey Unicorn Pamplona. As you might expect, it's pretty much identical to the Cabrera, apart from the fact that you've got an extra axle, which means an extra secure wheel lock. But what about inside? Surely there's a big difference in there. And indeed, it does make a big difference. This lounge area feels really spacious. Ignore the fact that it's got the optional Trafalgar trim, and it still makes a big difference. There's room for 6 people to sit in comfort in here, rather than 4 as in the Cabrera. The kitchen is quite different too, particularly on the near side, where you've got a huge fridge and separate freezer. You've also got a tall, thin cupboard, which is the perfect place to put your table, so you don't have to scrabble around under the bed as you do in a Cabrera. And of course, there's a big difference to be found in the washroom. Now, at first glance, this washroom might appear to be exactly the same as that of the Cabrera, but in fact, it's quite a lot wider, and it really does make a phenomenal difference. It feels super spacious. There's plenty of room for getting changed in here. How much wider? Well, wide enough to get in a rather neat little cabinet to keep your loo rolls in. But I can't help feeling that Bailey has slightly missed a trick here. They could have used just a little bit of that width to extend the bed in the master bedroom, which is actually completely identical to that of the Cabrera. So 2 very similar caravans. Now I'm looking at the spec sheet here, and the difference in price between the single axle and the twin, well, it's about £1,700. Yet the difference in feel inside, well, it's pretty much the width of this piece of paper. I can see why, if you like to socialise, you might prefer the larger lounge of the Pamplona, but for my money, I think I'd make the saving, not only on price, but also on weight. This single axle is 214 kilos lighter.